Like, it's crazy, man. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Assimilation Podcast, where we dive deep into the latest trends, discussions, and ideas shaping our world. I'm your host, mjmpoyi. Join me as I talk with experts, thought leaders, and fascinating individuals from all walks of life to bring you a fresh perspective on the issues that matter the most. Whether you're a curious learner or a passionate professional, this is the podcast for you. So sit back, relax, and be ready to get inspired, educated, and entertained. This is the Assimilation Podcast. Now, one of the few things that I want to go on before I introduce my next guest is that a lot of people don't like my videos, and you guys should like my videos so that it can get referenced to other people that are interested in this type of thing that I'm doing. So we're going to give you guys a moment to subscribe, like the video, and share actually. So we'll wait for you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for those that actually like. So on my next guest is actually, I always say it's a special edition of the episode, or it's a special, whatever special, but this one is like the real thing, guys. Believe me when I tell you it's the real thing. Now, allow me to introduce my next guest. I call her la yaya de toutes les yaya. La femme de Jean-Claude. La mère de Jordan, la mère d'Israël. One of the best, according to me. At least I told her that I asked her if she sees herself as a comedian, but she said not yet. But for me, according to me, one of the best upcoming comedians from Brussels. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podcast, the one and only Bitshiluxe.
Oh my God. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming and accepting my invitation. Which is like crazy. When I first invited her to the podcast, she gave me like a far off date. And I was like, is she really going to come to the podcast?
Of course.
I'm actually surprised that you made it. So thank you so much for coming out and showing support.
Thank you so
I'm really
much.
honored that you came out and, came to the platform.
Of course.
Now, one of my few questions, I see you on the internet. When I first started scrolling through your stuff, I see you on the internet, I'm like, I'm always curious about the life before the success. So can you talk to us, like, what was Bitshiluxe like 2 years before the whole thing blew up?
Whoa. So I was always active, Okay. I'm always learning, trying to find my paths and what I like to do.
Okay.
I always call myself like a lifetime student. So I was doing my podcast already. And, looking for people's stories, experiences. So I was always looking for my path. I think that's like something that I always had ever since I was a child, is questions, look at people behaviors and trying to bring all the pieces together. Because when you move to another country, it's like you live. No, it is not like you live a lot of pieces of yourself in many cultures and different countries and all that. So I've always had a deep passion of getting all my stories together so it can make sense. And I'm happy that with time I can put all my pieces together and make it like a great alignment for everything.
That's incredible, because it's one of also my few questions, but I want to also know, like, so when does this character or this comedic character in you first comes to like life?
Yeah, first of all, I'm always the funniest of the group. I know that's true. The loudest, I like making jokes. I like to be positive. I like to spread good energy and positive vibes, and just I like the room. And so for my friends, I've always been very funny and very creative, but because I like to analyze people so well, I've always know how to to do someone's voice, how they walk, And when I was a child, my mother always told me, "Stop doing that, bitch. That's rude."
you see, that's already like a very comedic way of like being a comedian, because most of these comedians actually that's what they do. They either like we have Trevor Noah, who tries the way to speak like the way politicians do and stuff. So you're already on the like I would say correct path.
He's one of my inspiration. It's that it's
For
like
sure.
it's the comedian and like someone that can ask good questions and bring the comedy like in a very serious conversation. Like being activism, but like doing activism, but in a very comedic way, and people get a message and laugh at the same time. So Trevor Noah is the man I'm looking at.
For sure. Like I've been watching obviously your content, and one of the few things that stood out to me is the way you're able to tell a story. Like the way you're able to narrate a story. I'm like, where does that skill come from? And especially like when you're doing your set or your clips, I look at it and I look the way you tell the story. It's like you say it layer by you lay them down layer by layer. Like where does that skill come from?
I will say that's first thing, that's divine talent. Even though when I was a child, I always had this deep imagination of what kind of job I want to do, what kind of friends. And I'm born in Congo, and we have this game that children play that we call Lisola Mabele. It means like the story of the ground, of sand. So it's like you sit on the ground and you have this stick and you can draw on sand and just speak loud and tell the story like that. It's like
so you literally the story that you're drawing
and you're telling it out loud. So I used to play that game when I was a child, like sitting, like I'm drawing like a man, and that is what this man is going, and then he's going lengths there, and then he passes here, and I used to play that a lot when I was a child. So I think that's where the depth came from, me telling stories, because I always used to talk to myself. When people look at my videos, like, oh my gosh, that's actually crazy because she's talking to herself. But I'm used to talk to myself ever since I was a child, telling my stories. So it's not only like I was drawing something, but I was drawing something and tell the story out loud, just like that, talking to myself.
This is incredible. Actually, so, when I think of it in retrospect now, I'm like, maybe because you've been practicing how to narrate a story, which is something I've been meaning to learn. Actually, it's hard to actually tell a story and be able to like take, because you do it so well. You would in like ad libs, you throw like a bunch of comedic accent in it, and still get to the main idea at the end. I'm like, that's
Thank you so much, because sometimes when we do something, I don't realize everything that you're telling me right now. I'm mind blown. I'm like, who are you talking about? You're talking about me.
I think that's when my job come in. You see, when I'm on the internet, because I'm not much on the internet because I have a lot of stuff to do. But when I'm on the internet, I try to analyze, and I know talent when I see talent.
Thank you.
I could be an A&R for most of people, because when I look, I have a deeper way of looking, which is something you also have, which I would like to speak about later on in my questions. But when I look at it, I try to see like the way you narrate the story. Like for me, it stands out because
thank you.
It's one thing when you're able to come out and speak to you in front of people, but it's another thing if you're able to tell something to people and be able to tap in and kind of relate to what people are feeling, to what people are thinking, to literally, you do that so well. Literally.
Thank you. And that's why my cousins always, when they want to remember something, like, does someone know what happened? Yeah. Because when I tell a story, I will say exactly what I heard. I will not add anything. So, and because I, like I'm a lover of keeping memories, documenting, I take pictures of everything. I take pictures of, like every time, and I keep all those things. I keep all those memories. And when my cousins, they want like to remember something, or my friends, they know that they can just call me, Bichi, what happened? Do you remember what they say? And then I will exactly say the things how it is. And that's why in my art as well, when I tell things, I think that people can like see themselves and see their childhood, their parents, their uncles, mothers, and all that, because I just say the things, or we say them in everyday life. I'm not trying like because I want it, of course, to be funny. But in our culture, we are so funny just naturally. So I'm not even like adding a lot of stuff. It's just saying the things how that I've heard.
Literally, you speak so much about your upbringing, but I've heard you speak so much about your upbringing, and I've heard you talk about it like on other platforms. But I want you to describe it the way you see yourself. If you had to tell somebody else, to describe yourself to somebody else, who would you say Bichi is?
Who? Oh my God, that's a big question.
Who? This is like the
I
way.
would say, Bichi is for sure a storyteller, and for sure someone who loves to document, and someone who wants to know. And what I can say about my childhood, I think that because I remember so much about it, it is because in our culture, it's not always appreciated when a child asks a lot of questions.
Literally.
It's like, why you want to know this? Why you want to know that? So I knew that they won't answer me. So what did I do? I looked at and I kept it in my head, so that one day when I will come at the age to remember, okay, what did I saw and what were my questions, that they will be able to talk to me. So it's like, okay, they won't answer me, so let me look. Let me pay good attention and see what they're doing. And when I will have the age, I will ask all those questions. So that's where it's coming from, me not being able to talk. I was not a very happy child.
Okay.
I was not really, because that part of me of like asking questions and getting an answer was not always present when I grew up. So, and that's where comes the strength as well as, okay, I'm not getting answers, so I'm gonna memorize so much that I can, and now everything is coming out. Everything is coming out that I saw and that I was so eager to ask and didn't have questions. From there, now I'm doing it. So I think I forgot the question.
But my question was like, you speak so much about your upbringing. Who is Bichi? So Bichi is a story.
Yeah, she's a storyteller, because she had so much questions.
Are some of those questions already answered, or are you still looking for answers?
I'm still looking for answers.
Like, what are some of the questions that you're still looking for answers? Maybe I have the answers.
But you know what is crazy is that because we came from a country where we were colonized.
Okay.
So there are some questions even my grandma doesn't have the answers.
Okay.
And that makes me a lifetime student, because there are questions that I will never have because they were destroyed. Like, we don't have the
evidence.
The evidence of it. Like, I will go to my grandma, ask for some questions. She will be like, I don't know. And then I will look into books, into things, and I can't even find them. So it is just like by living and feeling and navigate through life that I hope that I will have some answers. But when you come from a culture where like they took so much away of the knowledge that we had, it becomes very difficult to really know your story. So you're just going to go on a trip for your whole life.
Literally.
So that's why I'm calling myself.
And actually, referring back to your questions, so do you think that's where the desire in you of wanting to educate people about our culture, like the Bantu culture, comes from?
You know, I think that I need to do a lot of readings and a lot of things that I have to see and experience before I can say that I teach people about the Bantu culture. It's so big. But wait, I know why I said that, because I have a list of books that I am reading, and I think that the Bantu culture, it's so deep. It's so much knowledge that, like I say, that not even my grandma, nobody of my family members can give it to me, because we didn't get that. We didn't get that, the lessons of it, because we moved to another country. I know more about the history, about the Belgium history, than I know about the Congolese history, because I didn't went to school in my own country. So I learned and I live with other culture. But what I can do is, and what I think that I am doing, is that I am pointing out things that I've seen in my upbringing that actually brought a lot of confusion into my head, that I'm like, why are we doing that? Like, why are we thinking the way we think? Like, is this because we are very fast at calling things tradition, but some things are not always tradition. Some things are like behaviors that we just start doing as a community, and when that behavior is like is everywhere, and people just start calling it culture. And that's why I am reading, going back to like, what is the culture actually, because we lost so much, so we don't know. So I am questioning things that I didn't understand, and things that by growing up, doing my own research, by having my own experience de vie, questioning my parents and the elders in our community, like, why do you guys act the way you guys act? I'm just trying that we ask ourselves those questions, because we are people. Our story was taken away from us. So what can we call tradition? And so I am like just asking questions. So when people tell me like, oh, you are like educating us about our culture, I'm like, no, I call myself more like a community keeper, because I'm just trying to keep up with you guys. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Because saying that I'm teaching about the Bantu culture is so big, because the Bantu culture we have like a lot of work to do, so that we can know about our own history, because we didn't get that.
You show so much appreciation for our history. It's actually crazy. My next question, do you appreciate anything from this generation then?
Of course I do.
What exactly do you appreciate from this generation?
I mean, look at us. Look at you. I mean, come on now.
Okay,
we are here. I mean,
we only a product of that same culture, right?
Yes, we are, but we are like in a different the different time frame where we are asking questions. It's like we here sitting over here having this conversation, and not only like in a small kitchen. We are having this conversation
on a public platform.
On a public platform with an iPhone. We are documenting this.
Literally.
So this means that, and it is not like that our parents didn't have this conversation. It's just the difference is that we are documenting. You have a podcast, I have a podcast. So many things that, imagine just like if my grandpa had this idea as well and have this materials to record himself, I will have so many knowledge.
Literally.
And that's why I appreciate right now that we understood, like, okay, if we're having a conversation like this, we need to record, we need to document. And that's why I appreciate this generation, because we are now hard on, we're going to claim this knowledge, it's ours. We're going to record it, it's ours. You're going to put your name on it. You did it, you record this. And in 20 years, like, there will be a girl that wants maybe to do the same thing as I do, that will have questions, that can just go on the internet and have this conversation of us and being inspired. And I think that that's what we miss when we think about our elders. We don't have enough pictures, we don't have enough things recorded, and that's, you know, and that's what I appreciate about this generation.
Literally,
you know, we are documenting ourselves.
This is incredible. I've actually never heard you speak from this perspective. When you say it like that, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Because I'm also, like I told you before, I'm foreign. Sometimes I feel like I'm foreign to my own culture. I only know so much, and that's where I stop. I don't go about like asking questions and doing. I've just been passed information from my parents. They're like, okay, here we do this, and this is how we act, and that's that. Things are like this because that's just the way it is. We don't ask too many questions.
Yes, and I was always a child that was like, but why? But why?
That's
and
crazy.
Then when I learned more about colonization, then I was like, oh my God, we don't know anything. Wow. We have like to dive deeper, because it was took away from us. So that's why for me to find like all the pieces of myself, I just know that I will be on a trip my whole life, just looking for all these informations about myself.
That's crazy.
And I have to question anything.
So you question everything.
Everything.
Oh my goodness. Okay, this leads me to my next question. Ever since you started making like your comedic clips, do you have unfortunate moments in your life, but then think about them as how they would be, how you could create great content from them?
First of all, the first video that I made was out of frustration, because I was mad at a aunt, at the family who did something to me. So I really use my art as a way of healing as well. You know, like me always taking pictures, me always recording myself. It's a way of me to let things go. So I took my phone, I put it over there, and I said and I did exactly how she did.
Whoa.
And then I posted on my TikTok. And when I went to bed, I was like, Bitchy, that was very embarrassing. Like, why would you embarrass yourself like that? Like, remove that video. But then I was so tired, you know, like, because I was, you know, in my bed and thinking about, I was so tired that I fell in sleep. And then I woke up, I saw my phone, like a lot of notifications on TikTok. My mom called me, my sister called me, my friend called me. I was like, oh my God, what happened? And then I was, oh my God, it's the video that I put on TikTok.
It's going viral.
I didn't even know that was going, I just didn't know. I was like, what are people saying? And I was like, I hope I had to remove that video. People are maybe making fun of me. But then I saw like people were laughing. People were laughing. And I was like, oh my God, they like it. They think it's funny. But because for me, it came out of place of anger. So I was like, so I had the idea, like, oh, this may be a good idea for me now to put like topics that is within our community that makes me question things. Maybe is this a good way to show it and talk about it? So that's how I started, like putting topics and telling stories that that touches some topics that we have in our community.
So most of it come from your actual reality, or at least the
and
first
questioning some behaviors.
You really question a lot of stuff, Vici. That's crazy. It's scary from where I come from, because we're not meant to question a lot of things.
Yeah.
So it's actually crazy.
Yeah, and that's always funny to me when people say on Twitter, je salue son courage. They're like, we are not going to do it, but we think that bitch is going to do it.
Literally, right? So where does the concept of Mei podcast come from?
The Menji podcast came from the idea of me documenting. Me documenting myself, my thought, my process, my growth, and me documenting my family, my friends, the people that inspire me, because those are things that I want the next generations to have. Because you asked me what I was proud about this generation is the fact that we are documenting. And that's great. But the other thing is like, because our parents didn't document it, so sometimes we think that, we are the first of doing this. We are the first of telling our stories. But maybe we are not the first. We just don't have the information.
Literally.
You see?
Crazy.
And that's where we have to be. We have to pay attention, and that's why I say, okay, that's very important that I have a podcast that I can document, and that if there is someone else who comes that can like push further than me, and not say like I was the first, but say like, okay, my elders did this, they missed this point and this point, I'm gonna push further.
So you just have a passion for learning history. I'm curious now. What did you do? Like, what did you actually study? Did you study like law or history?
Nothing.
You lying. It's crazy because I know
that's just my passion.
People that study law, those are the people that actually read so much about history and all these kind of stuff. But it's to you.
That's just my passion, and I think
it comes out naturally.
You know, it comes. I think it really comes from. Like I said, like I will have questions. I will ask my grandma, and she would just look at me and say, like, I don't know. That's the way I learned it. And for me, it's like, if my child asks me something and my grandchild, I want to be able to answer. But I'm not saying that it's the fault of my grandma because the colonization came and they took so much. But I just want to have a lot of knowledge to give to my children and to give to my grandchildren, so that they won't feel like they're missing something that I can't tell them. And even though I will be not there, they still have the recordings. That's something to lean on and to always remember who you are. So that's just a passion that was born into me because I felt short on my own history.
Literally. That's actually incredible.
I didn't know if I answered the question.
You did.
I did. Okay.
You did answer the question. Do you see yourself doing stand-up comedy?
I can do it, but it will be in a frame of something linked with education. I can't do like a performance. I think like I can perform something, but then I want us, the story that I will tell in my performance, I want us to have a talk about it and ask questions about it and reflect on it. I think like
but I think that's most ways.
It has
that's
to
how
have
a lot
a
of comedians do.
Yes, but for me, I can just not do like a show and people laugh and go home. I have to link it with with a conversation after, with with a reflection after it, because I did study social culturel. So this means creating social cultural events where people can reflect on their communities, and that's where my passion is rooted into. For me, being funny and making all these jokes is just talents that I have on the side, but my passion really is focused and rooted into reflections and asking questions and going deeper on our behaviors as a community.
So what do you think can elevate you to that next level of being, of being able to tell these stories, be able to let people reflect on these stories, educating them, and actually bringing people, because at some point you're still bringing us under one umbrella, because that's what it is.
Thank you.
You've brought so much, and I've seen it, especially because I want to say multicultural, but not in a sense of like origin. Multicultural in a sense of you are able to tap into each and every person's language, and we are able to relate. Like, for instance, for me, I would never watch your stuff. I would say it because I come from an English background. I consume so much English stuff. But when I saw your stuff, I was able to tap in because you spoke English and you spoke French, which are the two languages that I speak. And you speak of most of the scenarios that you do. It's some things that I can relate. So you've been able to bring us under this one umbrella. What's the next level? How do you bring us under that umbrella and elevate?
That's such a good question. I think that I'm so overwhelmed when people say, "Oh, je salue son courage." You know, like she's questioning so many things, and she dares like to speak about those topics. You know, like bringing people together, and that they look at you and see your courage and see your work. Literally. Is, for me, is one step. But like pushing people, not really pushing, but like bringing people, you know, inspire people to start doing the same thing as you in their own communities. That's a step further. So for me, a step further will be not them telling me, "Oh, Bichi, I salute your courage," you know. Okay. But it will be like, "Hey, Bichi, you know what? I sit down with my father and we had this conversation, and one of your videos inspired that conversation. That's what I want to go."
So you want to create that impact on people. That's brilliant. That's actually brilliant. So I seen you, one like I follow you obviously, and I consume your content. So I saw you posted, just got off the phone with the president's daughter. I actually want to know, you get on the phone with the president's daughter. How does that conversation go?
I tell you, I was so surprised.
Okay.
So it happened. One of my...
Wait, but by the way, we're talking about like President Felix Tshisekedi, who is the current president of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Yeah.
Yeah, oh my God. So somebody else called me, someone that I know, and called me like video. Yeah. And you know, and I was like, "Oh, that's unusual. You know, he doesn't do that." Yeah. And then he goes like, "Hey, I have someone here that is a big fan of your work, and she wants to speak to you and you know, just tell you how great you're doing." But you know, I got a little bit like, I was like, "Come on, if all my close friends will start calling me with like, oh, someone," I mean, like, come on now. Yeah. And then, but I stayed like polite. I said, "Okay, no problem. Give me that." And I'm so happy I did it. I didn't say, "Oh, stop calling me every time." Imagine.
That would have been crazy.
That's a good education. Thank you, Mom. So I stayed polite. Yeah. And then she took the phone. She was like, "Hey, Bitshiluxe," and I recognized her. I was so shocked. She's like, "I love what you're doing," and you know, like, it's just like, keep going what you do, and those are great topics. You do it in a funny way. It really helps, and you know, like, keep going. I keep an eye on you, and I was just like, "Oh my God!"
How old is she?
I don't know. But it was funny. It was funny. Tshisekedi, she got married, I think, last year.
Oh, okay. I actually didn't even know who was. I just knew the daughter to the president. That's all I knew. So my next step is, I want us to also take a chance to look up a bit on social problems, because I refer to you as a comedian, and I've realized that comedians have a very different way of looking and analyzing matters. And I wanted to talk, especially because you talk so much about our culture and being able to document our own story in our way. I wanted to ask, how do you feel about cultural imperialism?
I think that that's the reason why when we see someone who's like very rooted in their history, just wanting to know about the history, that it's not even white people that will think that you're weird, or it's our own people that will think that you're weird and there is something off with you, or just like just go on with how things are. And that's the self-hate. You know, what hurts me much in this story is the self-hate that we have created and the distance that we have created for our own culture and for our own history. And, seeing it as something bad, just to question why do I have this position? Why does the beliefs that maybe, that our elders had is now seen as something bad? Why is my story not told at schools? Why can I enter a library and not find many African writers and read about my own history told by my own people? We, as a community, started to accept it, and not question it. And the one that is questioning are the bad ones, or like, oh, that's weird. And that's what hurts me the most. It's really like the self-hate that it made us to look to ourselves. Like, for example, how many messages people are sending me, oh my God, it helps me so much not to be ashamed to speak Lingala, not to be ashamed to, to be proud that I speak Lingala and all that. And then you're like, well, who told you that French, was better than Lingala, was better? We have to promote our own cultures and our own languages. If we don't do it, nobody will do it. I mean, like, if you look, for example, at China, Chinese was not always the language that everyone had to speak, but because they made their work in their language and they stick to it, and they got bigger and bigger, that it was not possible to ignore them, and that's the shrunk in it, in coming forward with your culture, with your language, with the stuff that your elders did, and where that the colonization made it look so bad and poor and all that, and stand strong in them. And if you just look at TikToks, how many TikToks people are vlogging now in Lingala? And now it's like great. But in the past, it will be seen as like, oh, look at this villageois, how they say it in English, like
villages.
Yeah, villages and all that. So I think that what hurts me the most is really like the self-hate that came with it. And I'm happy right now that we're starting to create those platforms where we can just be proud again of who we are.
This is incredible. It's actually... It's crazy. I have no words, actually. I actually, in my introduction, I always say I'm speaking to fascinating individuals and thought leaders. You literally define that. You are a thought leader.
But so are you.
Fascinating. No, I'm just here. I'm just a voice.
You can't give the compliment and not accept the compliment. Come on now.
No, but literally, like, hearing you speak, you are a thought leader, a fascinating individual. I've never, I think it would be disrespectful to other guests that have come, but it's the first time, my first ever, actually the second one, because the first time there's this other guy with the black pen, but this is the second one where I've actually said, I feel like I'm in a lecture. There's a professor actually educating me.
Thank you.
I'm telling you. Now I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go have to research about my own people, because for me there was just a part that it just cuts there. Like, sometimes I feel like I know so much about the South African history better than my own. That's because that's all I've learned my entire life, which is actually mind blowing. But thank you so much for that insight. I'm actually, you're actually giving me homework today. I'm going home and I'm actually going to research about everything that you've said today.
Yes, and send me your answers.
Literally, right? But anyway, lastly, I hate to ask this question because I feel like it's Radio 101, but you always have to ask it. And the last question is for a person out there who's watching that would like to do what you do. What would you tell them?
Just when you create art, those are prayers. Those are it's an energy that is within you, and don't look too far. Those are, like when you create something, when you want to tell something, you just have to come as you were like making yourself ready to pray, or to to be so vulnerable, and just to give a piece of yourself. Like I said, like this, I started that video from a place of I cannot say really like anger, but like a place of me wanting to get something out of me. And I didn't know that I was about to create, such an impact and take this walk. So just listen to what's deep in you, and just really be yourself. And what I will say is read. It's really read. It's not enough to just say, oh, I know how Congolese people are because I am Congolese. Like I say, we know nothing. And when you go of a perspective that you know nothing about the other person, and you don't know nothing enough about yourself, it will always push you to learn more.
Literally.
It will always push you to learn more, to do more, to research more, and to pay attention before you open your mouth. There are like a lot of things that I want to, I feel like inspired by, I want to talk about. And then I just stop myself. I say like, you didn't even read one book about this. Why are you going to take your camera and talk about it? That pushes me to go and open a book.
Literally.
And read, ask questions, talk to my elders, talk to my friends, talk to people. And in our culture is very rooted in it, because in all the books that I'm reading is that you're never alone. Actually, you have the nature, you have your community always with you. But where you go, you don't always represent only yourself. You represent a group of people. So when you do your work, before you speak, don't speak before you didn't ask your community and bring all your people with you. And that's the things that I always do. I can have something, I can tell something, but I will always listen to the story of my community, of my people, because where I'm going, I'm gonna bring them with me, and that gives me a confidence. It's not only my story that I'm telling. It's like when you told me that, oh, you're bringing so many people under one umbrella, and that's because I'm not just telling my story.
Literally.
I'm telling your story. I'm telling the other person's story. I'm always bringing my community with me. I bring my people with me. And that's very important when you bring that, because that's how people can recognize themselves in your work, because you always bring them with you.
Literally. Thank you so much. Like, this conversation is mind-blowing. Like I've already said. Now, I wanted to play actually a game. Yeah. You want to play a game?
Yes, let's go.
I'll give you a name I'll give you one word, and you tell me what comes to mind first, all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Papa Wemba.
Lingala.
Lingala. Why yes. Lingala?
Because Papa Wemba did songs in Lingala without even French words. It's like a proper Lingala.
So you have love for Lingala like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lingala, you have Lingala that is spoken in Kinshasa, with like the people. It's a street language as well. Like the people, they brought some streets in it. It's like English. You have like proper English, and then you have like the street language and all that. And in Kinshasa, that's what they did so hard on Lingala, putting like those street words in it. Oh, okay. But if you look Langa Langa Star, like the group where Papa Wemba came from, the Lingala that they were talking over there, wow. it's, that's the Lingala we're talking about. That's Lingala with words that even I didn't understand, but because Papa Wemba sing with so many metaphors.
Metaphors.
Yes, and that made it able for me to understand. And I admire him so much because he knew how to sing Lingala in a time that people saw Lingala as a language of the street and of the poor, but he sung it with so much class.
Interesting. Trevor Noah?
That's like Trevor Noah. He's bringing his people with him. He's a good example of. I am part of a community, and I will bring their stories to the world, make people laugh with it, but make them reflect as well on the situation of my people. And that's what I'm trying to do. People think, okay, look at these Congolese mother stories and the family, how they're living. That's very funny. But at the same time, we can see their story, feel their story, and reflect with them.
Nice. President Felix Tshisekedi.
Legacy. Yes, because of his dad.
Okay.
That's when a child is looking at their parents and understand their fight and their story. The President Felix, stood really by his father's side, and the fact that he's not president, his father was like a candidate almost his entire life. Yeah. So for him to be now president and honor his father's pet, it's very mind-blowing, I think. And I really see like the legacy where you can give your child.
But don't you think that kind of brings like nepotism into the entire politic spectrum?
I didn't even look at it at a politic perspective. I really, when I say just like legacy, I really believe that, even though when I'm not going to speak about how he leads, but I can speak about the passion that he has for his country. And I think that right now we really have a president who's passionate about his country, who has a lot of troubles that... but I believe deep down that he's very passionate, that he got from his father, and the passion is somewhere the legacy that his father left him. So that's the positive thing that I see in him.
Interesting. Mobutu Sese Seko?
Ooh, that's a big one. That's a big one because he has brought so much when it comes about our history in the way like, okay, how our hair, our clothes, our names, and I see the positive in it, but what he just forgot is bringing the voices of other people, and that's why it went wrong, because you cannot build, like you said, on l'authenticité, and that's the history. You cannot just build it on yourself. If he included much more opinions and voices, I think that son démarche will be something very beautiful to say, and that we will keep it.
And lastly, Patrice Lumumba. First thing that comes to mind.
To be honest, his documentation. The fact that he wrote letters to his wife. The fact that he did another speech. I think that's for me the example that he really he didn't want things to be lost. and just being said like that. Tu vois, c'était pas quelqu'un de cérémonie. It was really, on va frapper fort sur ce moment, donc we're gonna hit this hard. We're gonna hit this moment hard, and we're gonna remember it forever.
Literally. Ladies and gentlemen, Bitshiluxe. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Joining.
Thank you so much for all the compliments and all
like
that.
I said, I've always said in my intro, fascinating individuals and thought leaders, you are literally in that. You define it. You are the meaning of a thought leader. And we need more voices, especially from our generation and young people that think like you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm wishing you on your journey. I see you, at least for me, I see you becoming a comedian. Comedians have a way of storytelling. They have a way of narrating a story and having the skill of bringing people under one umbrella. Because we relate to what you guys say. We are able to tap in to the emotions that you guys bring out of us.
Yeah.
And for me, you are that. So I'm wishing you nothing but prosperity on your journey of being a comedian. For me, I see you as a comedian.
Thank you.
Because you definitely gonna drive thoughts, and you come out with thought-provoking conversations. So I want to thank you for coming to my platform and blessing my audience with the knowledge that you have. So
and
thank
you so much for choosing me as a guest. Yeah. And because that means that, because when I invite someone at my podcast, it's because I think it's very important for me to record you and document you. Yeah. So thank you so much for putting me in your, in your story, in everything that you are doing, and talks to so many people as you can.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Assimilation Podcast. We hope, for me personally, I actually hope that you learned something today from today's episode. For those of you guys that are not Congolese, I hope you learned something about our culture. If you have questions, do the research. You can follow her on her platform. She's a very, very prominent speaker on these subjects, so you can follow her on our platforms. Actually, shout out to where people can actually follow you and where they can actually find everything.
Instagram is where I post the most of my thought. Yeah. That's on Bitshiluxe, and now TikTok as well, just Bitshiluxe. And Menji Talks for the podcast is Menji .talks as well on Instagram.
Literally. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite platform. We'll be back next week with more thought-provoking conversation and insight. Until then, stay curious and keep changing the world. I've been your host, mjmpoyi. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.